I guess I shouldn't be late to my own live stream. We'll see what actually works or not. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Hopefully this is broadcasting out. I'm looking at a couple different monitors here, learning what can go wrong. I did a test a couple weeks ago, and it pretty much went okay. And I see the Tim F. is in the room. He was the winner of a surprise. Uh-oh. Hold on. There's goof number one. I started broadcasting myself out there. Sorry about the echo. So Tim F. in the room. Tim was the winner of a very surprise book and coin on the last unscheduled live stream. So thanks to Tim. He helped me out on that. I see we got a couple other things. Welcome to Unsealed Alien Files. Fernando, wow, we're going old school. I did 5 seasons of that. And yeah, they haven't done that in a while. So you must be... What's up, Tim? So we must be watching it on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix or Hulu or one of those things. Anyway, welcome everybody. This is the Black Vault Radio Live, my first ever scheduled live stream. I have no idea what the hell I'm going to talk about. There is a bunch of people in the chat room, and you're going to see me looking all over the place here. For those who did join me on the first live stream, I do have a couple of monitors. For whatever reason, my software does not link up to the chat room, so I have to look over here to actually see the chat. Hello from Italy. Well, thanks. I appreciate that, Conspiracy. Thanks for listening in. So this obviously is the pregame. It was a little bit trying to get all of the problems out of the way and any issues that may arise. I assume you guys can hear me okay. I see all the levels up, and somebody's asking, has it started, Jeffries? Well, let me know if you guys can hear me. Let me make sure. That's part of what this pregame show is all about, just to make sure that everything is working correctly. Now, what this is going to be, if you're not familiar, is an AMA, or an Ask Me Anything. Now, I have been asked to do quite a few of these over the last couple of years, primarily on a social network called Reddit, if you've ever heard of that or use it. And I just never was able to do it, and never kind of came to fruition. Well, Ep-0 has been something that I have wanted to do for a very long time since I started the Black Vault Radio, and have just never been able to do it. So now that I've got all of the equipment up, now that I've got it all ready to go, we are hopefully going to have a good time here, and I'm trying to figure out the best way I can watch this chat without looking all over the room. So there we go. That might actually be a little bit better. So that being said, so that is that's what it is. I have a toll-free line that I'm gonna post on the screen here. It will be on the bottom somewhere around this direction here when I'm ready for the phone calls. We'll start, I guess, on time at 4. I actually aim to start at 3 just to kind of have fun with those who are going to be the early birds. Well, okay, so I'm getting mixed reviews here on who can hear me and who can't. So I assume that Jeffries is potentially just not having his volume up or whatever, because I'm seeing levels going out there. Looks like everything is working, or at least should be working correctly. So that being said, I do have a toll-free line. Like I said, I'll be putting that on the screen. I am going to do just that. You guys can ask me anything, and well, hopefully I'll answer. Who knows? There may be some really wild questions out there that I'm just not going to be able to potentially answer, but we'll see what you guys come up with. I know what the hot topics are going to be. I would almost guarantee that TTSA is going to be a very popular topic, and the A-tip, which is very controversial on my contributions to that, if you want to call them that. Okay, good, Jeffries. Glad. Thanks for letting me know. So that's going to be a hot topic. I'm sure the Wilson leaks are going to be a hot topic. Yeah, I'm sure there's all sorts of stuff that's going to come up, but those two probably being at the top of the list. So I'm going to do my best to try and watch the chat, and really, ideally, the precedent's going to go over the telephone line. Now, again, I tested this the other day. There are going to be a little bit of things that I want to work out still, so I'll call them bugs. You guys probably won't even see them or even recognize it. It is not the toll-free line, so if you're geared up to call the toll-free line that I gave out last time, it is not. This is actually going to be an 866 number. This is dedicated 100% to this very channel. So don't call that one. I will be giving it out when it is time. And in fact, maybe I should just give it out now, have somebody call in, make sure that it is working correctly, because, well, we're still pre-gaming it. And here's the deal. I was actually going to go get a beer and drink the beer with you guys and whomever wanted to, cheers me here on a Friday evening. And I opened my fridge and I had 3 minutes to go, and I got everything ready, and I was streaming that slate that said there was going to be a pregame show. Open my fridge and I don't have a beer. So I've got my, handy dandy vodka. No, I'm kidding. It's water. So hopefully this will keep my thirst quenched here. And let me go ahead and, while we're still pre-gaming it, and you guys are awesome coming in so early, let me go ahead and put up the toll-free line. Here's how it works, though. So I'm going to give the rules a couple times just because we're going to have a lot of people coming in and out. So the rules for this is you can ask me anything. I don't mind. You can disagree with me on, because I'm sure there are some of you that are here that are just waiting to get to me about certain things that, again, are very controversial. I don't mind. You guys can ask whatever you want. The only thing that I ask is that you keep it clean and keep it respectful. You can disagree with me. You can turn it heated if you want, but please make it respectful. Since we are a little bit limited on time, the hour's going to fly right by. I do ask that we just keep it to questions. There's a lot planned for this channel, and I will have those opportunities for callers to call in, share their stories, and so on. But if we could keep it as short as possible, I'm sure the other people in the chat room and that are listening into the live stream will very much appreciate that. If I know, Stephen, I'm really upset about that. But you know what? I'll plan a little bit better next time. But that being said, really the rules is really that respect. We do have a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds in here, and a lot of different ages. So I want to be respectful to those on the younger end, that they don't hear anything inappropriate or anything like that. And, well, if I cut you off, I cut you off if you break one of those rules. But like I said, feel free to ask me anything. If you disagree with me and want to tell me, by all means, I'm totally open to it. And we'll definitely, respond if I can. And if we respectfully disagree with each other, that is all good. So let me go ahead and put that up on the screen. So the phone lines, 866-856-9722. Now, here's how it's going to work. It will ring. It'll tell you how many people there are ahead of you in the queue. It's going to back you up all the way to literally an unlimited number, probably because we'll have so many phone calls. I don't know. We'll see who actually calls. But if I'm not ready for you, let me make sure that I have to see this. See, this is where I got to work all this stuff out. And there we go. So when you do call, if you hear a pickup and then you're kind of put on hold and you hear some music, sorry, I can't feed my audio back to you, but you'll hear some music. That is just going to happen simply because I'm not ready to pull you on yet. Once I am, I'll go ahead and answer the call. Make sure, though, that your volume is turned down. That way you can not hear feedback and nobody will hear, echoes and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. Keep that volume ready to be turned down once I pull you on the air. There's probably a little bit of a delay. I wish there was something I could do about that. That's YouTube. But other than that, I'll pull you on and we'll go ahead and go from there. So if somebody wants to, feel free to call in, 866-856-9722. Fernando, am I an alien? Quite possibly. That is the first AMA question. Thanks, Fernando. That was a doozy. Yes, quite possibly, but I can't tell you. Now, let me go ahead. Yes, it is vodka, Fernando. Is God an alien? Wow, I don't know how many of these are very serious questions or how many are not. So, and I've got, let me pull the email too. So people have emailed in questions. If you're shy, you don't want to call in, feel free to do it in the chat. I'll also keep a watch on my email. Sadly, I have quite a few that have come in, so I'm going to get to as many as I can. James has a question here. Give me 1 second, James. I'm going to pull up some questions here before we actually officially get going. About 5 minutes. Nobody wants to call that toll-free line, or if you did and it's not going through, definitely just, let me know. 866-856-9722. Don't be shy. There's quite a few of you in the room. I won't bite, I promise. But that way, once we get going here officially in about 5 minutes, then I'll be able to know exactly if it is going or not. So that would be very, very helpful. So let me just go ahead and take this, James, while I'm waiting for somebody to call here. JG, what's the most convincing evidence or testimony that you know of that you know convinces non-believers, subject of your choice? Well, that's kind of a tough one, James, and the reason is I'll hone in on the UFO topic. I mean, that's obviously pretty popular with the Black Vault, and especially those that come in on this channel. The really convincing evidence, I think you have to look at it in a couple different ways. You also have to approach it in a couple different ways. Those non-believers and those skeptics, in my personal opinion, somebody from Las Vegas. Give me 1 second, Las Vegas caller. So it comes down to, I think, in my opinion, it really comes down to who you're speaking with, because everybody's definition of evidence is different and smoking gun is different. That's one of the taglines. I'm trying to do a shameless plug, but here it comes. When my book came out in April, the publishing company and I, we had come up with, well, actually I didn't. I had written it, but I didn't think it would be a tagline to sell the book. And that was, this book may not be the smoking gun, but it will give you a box of bullets when you find it. And I cringed when I read it. And I was like, oh my God, where'd that come from? And then I realized, oh my God, I wrote that. And then I thought, well, who the hell's going to buy a book that says this isn't the smoking gun? You know, because everybody over embellishes everything and everything is, the undeniable proof. And then I realized, no, that's exactly what I meant. The smoking gun is different for everybody. And to convince those non-believers, James, of it, don't hang up, Las Vegas. I'm almost done. Call back. So the issue for me, the issue then for me came, what do we do with that? What do we do with that tagline? And what do we give people with those non-believers? For me, the smoking gun, I don't really call it that, but the overwhelming evidence for me is official documentation. A lot of you may disagree with that, but that's just me. Other people, it's videos. If they see something on YouTube, that's their smoking gun. So the smoking gun is different for everybody. So James, going back to your question, not to be too long-winded, it's very, very tough to answer that because everybody's different and it really depends on who you're speaking with. But UFOs, to give you just kind of a broad answer, I love the science that you can't explain. I produced a couple shows for History Channel. We got into the physical evidence. In fact, it's a very small world. One of the objects that we analyzed is on the slide that TTSA now has a hold of, at least one that I can speak of. So it's a very small world in ufology, and I have always been fascinated by that. And when science can't explain something, doesn't mean it's necessarily alien, but next to documents, I love that science. Because again, science may change tomorrow and then we will be able to answer some questions, but at least that to me is closer to that smoking gun. So I know that didn't answer your question, but it's different for everybody. It's very, very hard. All right, so let me see if you guys can hear this. What I want to know is the caller from Colorado. Welcome to the Black Vault Radio. Wait a minute. How about that? There's another bug. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
Perfect. Yes, now I can. Sorry, that was my goof. As you can see, there is a mixer board behind me. And, I screwed that up. So that's why we're doing this, just a little bit of a test. What's your name?
Oh, this is Casper Parks.
Casper Parks, I know that name.
Yeah. I've been on a number of podcasts and wrote some fiction books, so yeah. And then I picked up your book from the when you had it first come out, the pre-shot with the coins. So, but you'll see when I was on the call to check, make sure the line was working good. Sounds all right.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I'm kind of cranking your audio as well. Those in the chat room, if you could let me know if you can hear Casper Parks, that would be awesome. But I assume so. So Casper, since you are the first caller, thanks for doing that. If you have a question, by all means, fire away.
I don't know. There's so much out there, and I know that I was flipping through an old John Lear document that I have from the late 80s, early 90s, which lists a whole bunch of like space programs and stuff. It was really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I should probably send you a copy of that. But yeah, I just want to make sure your lines are working good. Appreciate everything that you're doing for on the Freedom of Information Act. I know that's time-consuming, frustrating, and everything else. You know,
it gets frustrating. I'll tell you that much. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, well, I've seen people in chat saying they can hear us. Looks like it's pretty loud and clear. All right.
Yeah, no, everything looks good. So I appreciate you being the guinea pig, Casper. Thank you so much. If you have a question as we go through the show, feel free to give us a call back and or give me a call back, I should say. And
and if someone's in chat doing a question, I would suggest putting it all in caps so it's easy for him to see.
Hey, that's a great great suggestion. Put them all in caps so I don't look like an idiot trying to figure out what's a question and what's not.
I'm going to step away so other people can call in. You can continue. And good luck with your YouTube channel.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Casper. Thanks for calling. I do appreciate it.
Goodbye.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion there for the chat room questions. Those that want to do it, feel free to do so in all caps. Now, if you're just tuning in, I know that now we are at the 4 o'clock mark. I did a pregame show. Thank you to all who showed up a little bit early, hung out with me, figured out what I was going to screw up, and so on. So I know this is actually the start of the scheduled time. The way this is going to work, if you have not noticed, is that there is going to be a toll-free line for those to call in and ask anything that you want. And so I invite you to absolutely do that. The way that that's going to work, now to repeat myself for those that were here in the pregame, when you call in, it's going to come into my system. I'm going to put you on hold if I'm not ready. For example, the call that just came in from Florida. Sit tight, Fort Myers. I'll get to you, I promise. And you'll hear some music. I'm sorry I can't feed my voice back into the phone system, at least not yet. But it'll also tell you how many callers are ahead of you. So it's actually kind of a fun, cool feature. It'll tell you if you're second in line, third in line, first in line, fifth in line, 100th in line, however many people decide to call in, and see how we do here. But that's how that's going to work. Again, sorry to repeat myself, pre-gamers, but please keep it respectful. That's all I ask. You can ask me whatever you want. If you disagree with me on whatever it might be, feel free to let me know. I'm always open to a conversation, and I just do ask, because we have such an eclectic background here of different people from all around the world, of different ages, I do ask, especially for those that might be a little bit on the younger side, let's just go ahead and keep it clean. That is my only rule. Other than that, it is fair game. If anybody does want an international line to call in, that toll-free line is U.S. and Canada only. I do have one, and I can go ahead and give that out. So just let me know in all caps in the chat room. And hey, if you're brave and want to call in from another country, I do have a international number that you can do that. So that's not a problem. So I do have some things to share, but I don't want Fort Myers, Florida to stay on hold for too long. So Fort Myers, Florida, you're live on the Black Vault Radio. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? I'm a first-time caller on your show. Just to let you know a little bit on me, way back in the 80s, I actually went to your main website of the Black Vault and did a lot of research work way back then.
Okay.
And I just found you as a radio thing here now on YouTube.
Well, this is the first one. You said you were a first-time caller. I'll be honest with you. This is the first show that I've had callers. So you're actually the number 2 call ever.
Okay, I gotcha.
Good.
All right.
And what's your name, just so I know?
Boho.
All right. And the way that this, if you just were chiming in or just were tuning in and didn't hear, this is an Ask Me Anything type of format. So did you have a question that you would like to throw out there?
Yeah. Okay, it sounds strange, but is God an alien?
Well, I saw that in the chat room. Was that you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the reason why I asked you is my dad is a retired Air Force, and he said something kind of weird to me today because he's retired, so he's kind of like downloading on me now on all his, critical information. And he said way back when the space program sent out a golden space disk on one of the satellites that was in binary code. And from other shows, even the ancient alien shows and all that, that they actually discovered that there was connections between the aliens and their binary system of coding with understanding of language. So that's why I asked the question to you.
All right.
What do you think?
Well, yeah, I appreciate the question. You're starting with a doozy here because I don't know which way to approach this. Now, the disc that you're talking about is absolutely real. It was on the Voyager, and it was a disc with different pictures and a diagram of where we are in the cosmos. The idea, although it was fairly symbolic, was that if somebody picked it up, they were able to physically see who we were as a human race, where Earth was, and so on. And so, so that all is true. To your question about is God an alien? Here's how you have to approach it, in my opinion. Right? You have to look at the spirituality aspect of it. You have to figure out, whomever you're talking to, are they a believer in a higher power or so on. But there's that theory that God himself or herself, or however you want to refer to God, created all of the beings in the universe, and then you have the added aspect that the other beings in the universe seeded us, or possibly God created us. I'm not trying to be convoluted with my answer, but there are so many different ways to look at that. If you're asking for my personal opinion, the way I would respond to you is it comes down to your definition of an alien. Is God a creature from another planet that created all of us? Well, maybe, but I don't think so, because the argument for God stays true for all physical beings anywhere in the universe. Now, again, I'm not arguing for or against the existence of God in this answer, but what I'm saying is that I don't think that God would reside on another planet, and that explains us being created, simply because the creation of that quote-unquote God, that question still then remains on how we're trying to explain our own origin. Does that make sense? So the physical being that may be super intelligent and super advanced and have a 2 million year head start, that some want to say played a role in the evolution of people here on Earth, that religious question of, well, then who created that being still exists 2 million years ago when that being came around. So I think that it's a very tough way to answer it, and I probably didn't answer or do a good job, but that's how I would approach that.
Okay. Now, how would you explain, like, the theories that they discuss with the actual possibilities that the space and with the scientists and everything dealing with space, dealing with the theories of 5-dimensional and the concept of the numbers coming down to a binary system?
Well, when you start to get into inner dimensions and multi-dimensions and so on and so forth, you're opening up a whole different Pandora's box on how to approach this topic. And it's probably a show in itself, just simply because that science behind it is so hypothetical that it would be impossible really to give you a good answer that would satisfy it. You're getting into really big hypotheticals on that, and it's really it's really tough. But
I'm sure you've seen like the shows like Ancient Aliens and some of the other ones there with Linda Howell and all them, where they actually discuss the part about the aliens and dealing with the measurements of things that was made not only on Earth, okay, but the formula of in space and the placing of planets and everything.
Yeah, I think this may not address exactly what you just brought up, but I will say this about the ancient alien thing. I mean, I've interviewed Linda Howe quite a few times for various programs. I've known Linda a long time and have been friends with her for a long time. But I differ when it comes to the ideas behind ancient aliens and the idea that aliens assisted. What I'll say with this, and then I have to move on to a different question. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off after, but what I would say about it is that I think that there's a lack of giving credit by those that believe in the ancient alien and ancient astronaut theories. There's a lack of giving credit to what humanity has accomplished on its own. Now, not to sound cheesy, but we have done amazing things as humanity. Just look at the last 125 years. Look at what we've done. Some people argue, well, that's captured alien technology, and stealth is because of, whatever crashed alien. I don't see it that way, and the same is true for the ancient.
You don't think it's done by reverse technology?
No, I don't. Because again, I think that you're taking away from what humanity has accomplished on its own. I mean, if you want to go down that route, you're just, in my opinion, you're just essentially saying humanity can't do anything on their own, and we need this kind of spoon feeding of technology, whether inadvertently or intentionally, by an alien race. And I just don't see it, nor do I see evidence of it. What I see is we have a history of growing. Our science is growing. Humanity has done some amazing things. And just because we can't figure out, let's say, how the pyramid was built, although there's some pretty good theories now, but just because we can't figure that out doesn't necessarily mean, alien. It's a great topic, though, and I'm not trying to, shut you off or anything about it. But it's...
I appreciate the answer, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And like I said, to call in another time and discuss other topics, because I have been doing a lot of research with a teeny bit with her, and also MUFON and a few other people, and stuff on my own for other people putting stuff on my desk. And I'd love to call in and talk to you.
Well, definitely do that. Subscribe to the channel, and in fact, all of you that are listening, subscribe in those buttons down there, and you'll definitely get notified of the next stream. But I appreciate your call. So that being said, I saw some notices there in the chat room, and thank you for letting me know, because in my ear, I have an earpiece. I set that volume manually, so I'm trying to see exactly what the caller volume is. I'm still kind of learning. So hopefully it got adjusted there a little bit better. So let me know in the chat room if the caller volume became a little bit better for you. The great suggestion on the questions in the chat room, so I can see them. Do them all in caps. That would be awesome. Sacramento, let me bring you on the air. Welcome to the Black Vault Radio.
Yeah, I have a couple questions for you.
Sure. What's your name first?
Jake and Chico.
Well, thanks for calling. What can I do for you?
I have a question about the Bob Lazar issue. I'm pretty much under the impression that you think it's a fraud, pretty much, correct?
You could say that, yeah.
Is the only reason why you think it was a fraud is because of his records not being able to verify?
No, sir. And it's a great question because it's hard to summarize, but there's quite a few different reservations I have. First and foremost, the education, I'll start there. Absolutely, that's a red flag to me. And the reason is because if somebody starts their story off with a fabrication, and I'll explain about the deletion of records and stuff like that in a moment. But if somebody starts off their story with a fabrication, you're already off to a fairly bad start when it comes to credibility. But on top of that, even though I am not a scientist, I've talked to quite a few that are, including on this very program. If you didn't hear it, tune in to the interview I did with Dr. Chris Cogswell. The science behind what Bob Lazar was saying and is saying and has said does not match up to what we know in science, right? So I'm not going to pretend to know that every facet of what he is saying and how it is wrong. I'm not a scientist, but there are those that are out there that have addressed that. However, here is my biggest red flag about the Bob Lazar story that goes beyond the science and it goes beyond the documentation. And that is quite simply, he is on television, he is on documentaries, he is on the Joe Rogan show, and he has done interviews for 30 years and no one has touched him. When you look at history and you look at anybody who has given out true classified information, they are either in jail or in a hole hiding or just got arrested out of the Ecuadorian embassy, right? That's what happens when you take classified information and give it out to the general public. With Bob Lazar, no one's ever touched him. And if you want to talk about the FBI raids, you have to look at why they were there and how many.
I know. I'm aware of all that.
Yeah, so
obviously suspectful. But my question is, with Bob Lazar, I'm a government employee, and I know what the government's capable of, and getting rid of educational records would not be that far-fetched.
Yeah, but you're going to have to destroy every yearbook. You're going to have to destroy mom's very proud photographs taken at his graduation. You're going to have to destroy.
I didn't even participate in the yearbook when I graduated.
And well,
So that could be very
that's
well be
fair.
possible.
But have you ever seen anybody that's come forward and said, "Hey, this is Bob and I having lunch on the, the grass," or like there's nothing, not one single anything, nothing.
I'm on the fence. I don't know whether or not I believe a story or not, but just if it's just due to educational records, I don't know. The other thing is about his I forgot what I was going to say.
That's okay. I just think the bottom line for the Bob Lazar thing, because I have given it a shot, and I appreciate being asked about it. But there's just nothing to support it. And the biggest red flag for me is the fact that he's able to talk about it. And there's no way that anybody, Bob included, can get around the fact that this would be, if it was true, and there were 9 alien saucers or reverse engineered saucers or whatever whatever the technology is, it would be highly classified. Everyone can agree with that. And so to be able
I agree. Have you heard the interview with John Lear and his side of the story?
Yes.
About how he thinks it was planned because they knew he was going to release the information, and so they wanted to see what the public had thought about it.
I'm not going to say that. Look, I would rather talk with John just so he doesn't think I'm talking around his back. I don't buy that though, and the reason why is because. To me, that's a bit of a cop-out, and I don't want that to sound disrespectful, but that's just an easy way to say, well, they knew he was going to do it, or this was planned, so that's why they didn't touch him. No, I just don't, I don't see it. Now, again, that's me personally. Other people may be able to come around and get beyond that, but I just don't. The other thing, too, is away from that, there is not a single shred of evidence of anything that he is saying. And I know my friend, the late Stanton Friedman, did extensive research trying to verify Bob's claims. And although his findings were very controversial themselves, he did his due diligence. And when you look at that and the lack of anybody backing up Bob, with the exception of someone in a silhouetted interview, you have no idea who they are. And the Jeremy Corbell documentary didn't really go into really kind of any of the red flags, touched on the education thing very, very briefly. To me, that's telling. When I did shows for History Channel, when negative things came up about the topic I was dealing with, we put it on camera, not to have a skeptic or debunker, but for me as an advocate for making sure that the public was made aware of everything about a topic. I made sure that was on the air so we could deal with it head on and make sure that the people were aware. There's a lot of ridicule that he had Bob Lazar's mom on. Why wouldn't you ask her? Were did you see him graduate, or just to at least have someone else on the record about his education? And that didn't happen.
True.
So yeah, there's a lot of ways that we can ridicule somebody for doing a documentary, and that's not my style. But I think it is telling when you don't have the information or you don't have the people that might back up your claim. Some producers and directors will just not deal with it, and they'll say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with it right now, and just omit it from the documentary. So when somebody in the general public sees it for the first time, and Bob is likable, I mean, I watched that documentary. I recommend everybody to see it. I don't think Jeremy Corbell is a bad filmmaker. I do recommend people to see it, but I also tell people, look at what's in there, but look at what's not. And that is very telling about the Bob Lazar story. So I hope that answered your question. I'm going to get to a couple other questions, but I really do appreciate your call.
I just got one more question.
Sure.
About when you file FOIA requests, are you at all worried about backlash from government agencies like an IRS audit or being put on a list or anything like that?
It's a great question. If it was going to happen, I'm about to enter my 23rd year of doing this. I filed over 9,000 requests. Knock on wood, knock on microphones. I have not been audited, which I probably will now that I just said that. But I don't get harassed. I haven't seen anything bad happen. I've had 19 death threats, like real death threats since I started, but nothing that was official. I could track a lot of them, but not all of them. So, is that an official threat? I'd drive myself insane if I started thinking that paranoid. Some of the people I caught were, just kids and teenagers fooling around. Other ones, yeah, they did a pretty good job covering their tracks. But nothing official, nothing bad. What I've found with the Freedom of Information Act is most of the people are very, very, they're very helpful, and they want to help when it comes to the Freedom of Information Act offices and stuff like that. You don't always get what you want, but they're very, very helpful. They're not like cigarette smoking men in the corner plotting your doom if you file a FOIA request. So I don't know how many FOIA requests are the top requesters. Like I said, I've done over 9,022 years. I'm still kicking and not going through audits and being harassed all the time, at least not yet. So, I try not to be paranoid because that would drive me nuts. So hopefully that answered your question.
I love your show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for calling.
All right, man.
Thank you. So, hopefully that answered some of those questions. I see lots of those coming through. Also, what this AMA is all about is just to kind of give you an idea. Hold on, I'm going to put you on hold there. Is at least once a month, I'm going to be doing this. The idea is more. But I also, if you haven't heard the radio show that I dropped today, definitely do it. It was an interview with Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers, who has an incredibly popular YouTube channel, and he's spent a lot of time in the field on Area 51 around Area 51, researching, investigating. And I did a couple of pretty cool announcements. One was, if you didn't hear it, I am coming out with a second book, thanks to all of you and the big support that my first one got. So I really do appreciate that. This is my shameless plug here, if I can actually figure out. There we go. So that was my first one. So thank you guys for supporting this, because shortly after it was published, I couldn't talk about it, but they had approached me about doing a second one. That's going to be out about the same time next year. I am rapidly approaching the date. So that was my first good news. The second is I have quite a few different plans for this show. And not only is it going to be the radio, I've actually got some really cool videos planned, edited, not live, to really kind of help educate on different topics, not only UFOs, but all sorts of government secrets. There are some amazing stories out there that I'm going to bring to this channel. But in order to do that, I need help. I'm not going to lie. It becomes very, very expensive. Last month in June, about 300,000 people downloaded 19 million files from theblackvault.com. So I had to bring up a third dedicated server just to handle that traffic. So it gets a little bit pricey. So I started a Patreon campaign, and it was reluctant because I've always stayed away from that. I'm a big advocate for freedom of information. And I'm an advocate for the freedom to that information. So I'm not putting anything that I wouldn't normally put on the site behind a paywall. The Black Vault will remain free. But the video today, which is public, I'm going to be doing that for the Patreon subscribers, even at the $1 level. If you can pitch in $1, it's very, very helpful. The link to do that is at the very bottom, or at patreon.com/theblackvault. There's also different levels that you can subscribe to, and you get some different perks and so on and so forth, with some more coming online. But with that help, I'll be able to kind of take this to the next level. There's some very cool things planned. This obviously is one of them. You can kind of see where I'm going with some of this. But next week I've got a pretty exciting thing planned for you guys too. It'll be public. But an interview, I'm bringing back retired police lieutenant Tim McMillan. And Tim has done a lot of research. I'm sure we'll talk about it here by the end, but a lot of research into special access programs, or SAPs, and also those Wilson documents. So I'm bringing him aboard next week on a live stream, and give you guys yet another different show that you'll be able to watch. So most of this is all going to be public. But in order to do that, I just kind of need your support. So anything that you could pitch in, I really do appreciate it. That Patreon link is down there. There's also another link if you want to throw in, $1 or $2, whatever you can spare, because it is definitely appreciated. I'm getting to chat questions too, but we're getting a lot of calls. So I'm going to try and balance this the best that I can. I've got a caller now on the line. Welcome to the Black Vault Radio.
Hello, John. This is Stephen Padilla from Facebook.
Hey, Stephen Padilla. I know that name. I appreciate your long-standing support of the Black Vault. You have you've been amazing on supporting and spreading the word about the Black Vault. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure doing that, posting all those UFO information to all the followers of the Black Vault. So I'm really grateful for all the work you've done to share the knowledge of all the hard work that you do, and thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Do you have a question?
Yes. Well, really, maybe one or two quick questions.
Sure.
Number one, I've been interested in UFOs since I was about 8 years old. When I saw the Rex Heflin photos in the Life magazine, my dad showed it to me when I was about 8 years old. And this is the mid-'60s, so I'm going to be 60 years old now. So I've been following UFOs, reading everything through the mid-'60s or 70s, 80s. Now, over almost 50 years. I've concluded, like Stanton Friedman once said, I believe that the reason the government has not released information because it is a national security issue regarding the truth being told to the people, that disclosing opens a big can of worms regarding cattle mutilations, regarding abduction, and they cannot protect the skies. They cannot protect the American people. Worldwide, actually, these visitors could do exactly anything they want to do. You've proven that the documents and that these UFOs are real. They visit our military bases. We have all these witnesses, military witnesses. And you once did a lecture, Common Sense of the Reality of UFOs. Common sense tells you these documents prove it. So I think would you agree that that's maybe one of the reasons they do not disclose?
I do, yeah, I agree with that. The national security thing is a big deal to me, just simply because whatever this phenomena is, and I do use the plural form, as most of you have listened to me before, there's multiple facets to it, and there is a national security risk. Whether or not it's extraterrestrial, I'm not sure, and whether or not extraterrestrials want to come and kill us, I'm not trying to say that. But this phenomena, whatever it is, can do things in areas that it's not supposed to. And so by definition, that is a national security threat. Absolutely. So I do not disagree with that notion at all.
Right. And another question, have you ever thought about using your Freedom of Information Act on yourself with NSA, CIA, FBI, and get access if you have a file?
Yeah, great question. And so with the CIA, I'll start there. Generally, they just do what's called a GLOMAR response. And yes, I have. I've requested. So with the CIA, they give you a GLOMAR response, which is standard. And what a GLOMAR response is they can neither confirm nor deny that they have records. That is a standard response, no matter who submits a request on who. The FBI, when I requested, and it's been a few years now, but when I requested my file from the FBI, it was one of the fastest FOIA requests I ever got back, and they said, we have no records on you. And it was like, well, okay. And I always scratched my head on that because I thought, well, I started this when I was 15 years old. I'm now a lot older. And so when you do something for more than 20 years and you're hounding the government for information, and I've put 2 million pages online for people to download, the issue with that is, why wouldn't they make sure that a Chelsea Manning-like person is not going to come after me and say, hey, John, I got something for you. You've got a lot of traffic. Put this on the front page and, we'll break this wide open. So I would hope that they would keep tabs on me simply because of what I'm doing and the access that the blackvault.com is giving to everybody for these pages. Because let's face it, if they give me something on accident that they're not supposed to, and I post it out there, there's a lot of people that are going to see it very, very fast. And so the margin of error on a inadvertent classified release with me, it has to be nil. They can't make that mistake because I'm also fast in getting documents up. Now, I won't go into detail, but I will say this. I shouldn't, but I'll say it anyway, is there have been accidents that have been made. and I received something I shouldn't, and I made sure that I didn't post it. What if I didn't feel that way, right? What if I got this and went, aha, I've got something. And now if before the chat room blows up, don't worry, it wasn't anything interesting. Even if I posted it, it wouldn't have been a problem. You probably wouldn't have even known that I shouldn't have had it. That's how kind of silly classified information is sometimes, but it happens. And I made sure the agency knew, and I made sure that it didn't go anywhere. The reason I bring that up is to share, to prove my point that if I really did not feel that way, and I wanted to just blast every secret out there, why wouldn't they make sure I don't get those secrets, you know? And so for them to come back the quickest I've ever had a response, and they say, nope, sorry, we don't have anything on you. That was actually more disconcerting than if they said, yeah, we have a file, but we can't give it to you, to be honest with you. I would hope that they watch people like me. I got nothing to hide. If they want to see that, you know, I'm drinking out of a blue cup, by all means, come on in. You know, it's not a big deal to me. But they don't, which is fine. But to me, again, it's disconcerting because there are people out there that if they did receive something like that they shouldn't have received, they'll blast it on the internet and go, here we go, world. And I just don't, as much as I advocate for the release of secrets, I don't advocate for that. So anyway, hopefully that answered your question, Stephen, but I do appreciate you calling.
Thank you, John, for all your hard work.
Thank you. And so that was actually a crazy time. I didn't post any of it, and it has happened. Mistakes happen, and I totally understand that. I'm going to pull a chat room question here. Scrolling back. Oh, wow. Just by chance, James Silver, do government agencies keep tabs on you? Do they interact with you, JG? Well, the first part of that, obviously, I just answered. The second part, do they interact? Yeah, actually quite a bit. I get phone calls from the CIA, from the NSA, from the FBI, phone calls, emails, stuff like that. They interact a lot. And that's simply because primarily it's Freedom of Information Act related. They want to make sure that, you are clear in your request. If they have a question, it's a lot easier to pick up the phone. Sadly, not all agencies do that as much as you want them to. I mean, again, I do receive calls, let's say from the CIA FOIA office, but they don't do it enough. The CIA is so problematic when it comes to the Freedom of Information Act and the way that they are. It's frustrating. It really is. Quick note on those that are calling in, because it looks like the queues are full. The way that it works is I'll put you on hold. So if you hear music, it'll tell you what point you are in line. Don't hang up. I will promise to get through as much as the queue as I can, but that's how the calls work. Let me pull this call on, though. 937 area code. You're live on the air. Who's this?
Hey, John. This is Rob Bishalia. How you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Just had one question for you, and I've always wanted to ask. Out of all the FOIA documents you've gotten, over 2 million plus, what is the one that just sticks in your mind that just blew you away when you got it?
That's a tough one to answer because it depends on. Are you talking about what subject or any subject?
We'll stick with UFOs. Anything related to UFOs that just blew you away?
Yeah, I mean, I've told this story a couple times on the radio, so hopefully for those listening, it may not be too much of a repeat. But the 1976 Iran document for me is special. There's a personal connection that I have to it, simply because that is the first document I ever saw that got me interested. And if you're not familiar, that is my cat back there. Sorry if you see my cat. Made a little bit of a cameo there. So the 1976 Iran document, if you haven't seen it, it's on the Black Vault. Just search for 1976 Iran incident. And it really is an amazing case that in my eyes and in my opinion cannot be explained even in 2019 standards at all. And this was not one UFO, not two UFOs, not three UFOs, but actually 4 UFOs that were seen in Tehran by multiple F-4 fighter jet crews that had their weapon systems and communications shut down seemingly by this UFO when the F-4 seemed like a threat. When it was no longer a threat, it regained control of everything. One of the UFOs that was seen, they actually all came out of the primary UFO. I hate to use the word mothership, but that's kind of the only way to describe it. And one of the UFOs came out of the side of the original one and went down and either landed or hovered right above the ground. Now, that's a quick synopsis, but it's a 4-page document. I highly recommend everybody look at it and read it because it's fascinating. Here's what I'll say about it, though, is it's not classified, and you can read it. And that, to me, is fascinating because not only is the information amazing, the reality of it not being classified is mind-boggling, because then when you put that next to UFO documents that are received under the Freedom of Information Act, and they are considered top secret or secret, up to the highest classifications that our U.S. government can put on it, and there he goes. Sorry, I'm pointing. You, I don't know if you're watching on the screen, but my cat's doing some cameos here. But when you couple that together and you take in the fact that it's not classified and you can read it, it really makes you wonder what is underneath those top secret documents that you can't read. And that, to me, is the most, I think, underappreciated fact when it comes to UFO documents. And that's why I always bring up that 4-page 1976 Iran incident document, because that story's been around a long time. I don't claim to have found it. It's been written about, I think, in a book before I was even alive. So it's been around a long time. But the reason why I bring it up is, again, that extra fact. When you look at other top secret documents on UFOs and they're blacked out from top to bottom, that's insane. And that, to me, is something that I think is very underappreciated when people look at government documents.
Well, the only other question I have for you is, are there any FOIA requests that you have out that you're anxiously awaiting? Any, like one particular one that you're really hoping that you haven't heard back from that you'd like to hear from?
Yeah, there's quite a few of them. I mean, this day and age, just to, and I'll this is where I'll share also. You can stay on the line with me here. I'm going to go through something. Feel free to also, you won't offend me if you hang up. But to answer your question, I want to show everybody something. And this was a document that then this is going to play into your question. So for those that are listening that are into the Freedom of Information Act, you can do something very, very cool with the FOIA that not many people do. Most people will request information on UFOs, or give me all you have on this submarine, or give me all you have on, whatever the topic is. One thing that I've learned to do, and it's a lot of fun to do, is you can request a search of a specific personnel's email box for direct keywords. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, in the UFO world, obviously we were rocked by the whole admission that not only were UFOs real, but they are being investigated by the U.S. Navy in new guidelines. And so what I did was created multiple FOIA requests to different offices. But I actually, and I'm going to change the view here. So if you're watching on the camera, this is what I'm going to be referring to. So hold on, I'm still... you guys should be able to see the documents now. I went ahead and requested these things, and they were all about the internal searches of the Public Affairs Office for press inquiries about the UFO guidelines. And what you can learn from this, and I'm getting to the answer to your question, I promise, but I wanted to bring up to people, again, those that utilize the FOIA, is that you can do this and start using keywords and get emails, because they're great lead generators for more FOIA requests. And what you're looking at on screen is the one batch of documents with the keyword UFO in the Department of the Navy's Public Affairs Office. And I got about 60 or 70 pages or so of emails of the Navy talking internally about the quote-unquote UFO guidelines. What you also get are the emails of the press sending in questions, and then the Navy's responses back out. And what's amazing in this, and I'll let people kind of decide on exactly how they want to take this, Brian Bender was the one who broke the story about the UFO guidelines from the U.S. Navy. Now, for those who do pay attention, he was under some heat a little bit, because he appeared on the show unidentified, and some people felt that this was just fed to him as publicity for the show, which he adamantly denied on Twitter. Here's an email, if you could see it on the screen. And I'm going to highlight it here. Do you see it? I'm not sure if you can see it or not. But
I can't. I don't know if others can, but I might be a minute or so behind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think there's a delay. So the date on the email where you can determine this is Brian Bender, although his name is blacked out, he makes reference to his article, which links over to the December 16th, 2017 article for Politico. There's only one guy that wrote that, so we can easily deduce that. February 19th, about 2 months prior to that newspaper publishing the UFO guidelines, he was aware of this and he sat on the story. Now, that's not an accusation towards him, but what I'm pointing out here is the fact that you can actually get this information through the FOIA and see how the press offices are communicating with the media. And I'll make sure that you guys see these. I'm trying to think how, because I can't get into this silly. Actually, I can't do it. I don't know why my chat doesn't work. I can only see it, but I can't communicate. But anyway, these documents have not been published yet on my site, and that was one thing that I wanted to do, is to kind of show these documents, use it a little bit as a teaching tool as well. But one thing, when I do post them and we go through it a little bit more in depth, is the fact that you can see what the media cut out of what the Navy was saying. So you get the full statements. And let me tell you, there's a lot of information here on how the Navy was communicating with the media, and the majority of the information was cut out, and words were changed to UFOs. UFOs actually never appears in any of it. So it's really kind of interesting to see how the media interprets what they get, and then how the public interprets what the media gets. Now, back to your question, because I wanted to preface it with those documents. The Navy guidelines themselves, what I had learned over the telephone, if you haven't seen some of the stuff that I've published, is the Department of Navy said that the guidelines published this year were not new. They were simply an update to a 2015 regulation or protocol or guideline. So they weren't new. So I had filed a Freedom of Information Act request for those guidelines from 2015. And let me share with you guys one more thing that has not been published. You'll be able to see on your screen now, this is the letter that just came in 15 July, so just a couple days ago. And, actually, this is another denial. That's okay. I'll tell you about this one too. The 2015, though, guidelines were considered classified. And so I have published that you can see online. This particular one is another denial by the Navy. This one I have not talked about on the Black Vault at all yet. So everybody tuning in, this is the first time. So the Navy is denying that they have any safety reports about the UFOs that were seen around the USS Roosevelt, the Theodore Roosevelt, in all of 2014 and all of 2015. So what you guys are seeing on the screen here is the official denial. Now, I have appealed this, and this is my long-winded way of answering your question. This is what I am kind of anxious to see on what comes back, because I appealed it based on the fact that one of the pilots did go on record stating that he filed a report. Now, in fairness, he may not have filed the report to the Navy. We could be playing semantics here, and we got to figure out exactly. You know what? I think maybe I messed that up and you guys haven't seen the documents. But anyway, it is on screen now, so you should see it. So anyway, this is the denial for those who are now seeing it for the first time. But anyway, that is something that I want to get the reaction to and the final response when it comes to the FOIA, because it's newsworthy, it's up to date, it's about UFOs, and really about a case that we haven't been made well aware of, at least for quite some time now. So anyway, not to get long-winded, but I did want to kind of work in some of the other documents that I promised a few people I would on this particular chat.
Oh no, that's really cool, and thanks for taking my call. And just want to end by saying I did purchase your book. It was awesome. I read it cover to cover, and I had jumped in. I can only right now support you $5 a month, but if all of us did that, I think that would go a long way to helping you out.
I really do.
Thank you for the book.
I really do appreciate that on both fronts. Thank you for that. Thank you.
All right, take care, John.
Thank you. You too. Now, for those of you, I do, again, this is the first stream, so I messed that up. You guys were watching me look at the documents, but not seeing the actual documents. These were the emails that I referenced, just to kind of give you the quick one. You can see this was the original Brian Bender email into the Navy, and you can see I'm going to highlight it here again, not go through the whole story. You've already heard it. But obviously, Bender was tipped off in February. He says, makes reference to his Politico article, and he says, quote, "What I am trying to chase down now are details regarding what I am told was a recent briefing by a 2-star admiral to 9 senators, some members of armed services and some from Intel, on those unexplained sightings by military pilots, including more recent ones." So that's why these documents are so important, because you start to see what the media knew and when, and then you match it up to what they say on Twitter and, see what they say. I'm not making any accusations there, just kind of showing you what came up in a Freedom of Information Act request. Now, let me go ahead and go to the phones again. Welcome to the Black Vault Radio.
Hey, John, how are you? It's Coley.
Hey, how are you? Can you?
Great. I guess my question first, is there a delay?
A little bit, but I can hear you.
Okay, I'll make it short then. Just much appreciation for what you do. And also my question for you is on Robert Bigelow. And I've followed this for a few years now, but so I'm kind of...
You know what? You're breaking up. I can't hear you. So I'm sorry about that, Coley. I don't mean to cut you off, but it's really breaking up. I can't hear anything. Feel free to put it all in caps on the chat room, and then I'll go ahead and definitely watch out for yours. So I'm sorry about that. UFO issue, yeah, thanks for that. There's a lot of windows to watch here. I totally messed that up, but thanks for letting me know for that. So thank you. Apologize that I messed up the documents, but all of those, just to repeat, this is the type of stuff that I want to do at least once a month. Again, some are public, but again, those private meetings. So if you guys are interested in supporting, there are links down there to help support the site. These meetings will be open, again, even for those that are doing the dollar level. If you're interested in doing that for the Patreon campaign, it helps a lot because as you'll see next week, there's a lot more planned. If you missed that earlier in the show, I'll be bringing in retired police lieutenant Tim McMillan, who will be talking about the Wilson documents via live stream. And it will be something that, it's going to be a lot of fun. And then there are quite a few more surprises other than that. So that being said, I'll put that telephone line back on the screen. Feel free to call in, guys, if you are interested. Let me go ahead and see if there are anything. Well, now people are typing in all caps that aren't questions. That's even more confusing. Remember, caps, all caps for questions. Do you believe... This is from Jeffries. Do you believe Bigfoot is connected to the UFO phenomenon? Many sightings here in Australia. Jeffries, I'm not real familiar with the Bigfoot field of research. Here's my connection to it. If you watched the news a couple months ago, I had tracked down, after speaking at a conference in Colorado, David Paulides' conference, he had asked me to speak. And I was fascinated by some of the Bigfoot researchers because I don't know anything about it. I don't want to say, it's all silly and bunk. I'm not educated enough on it to really know better. And so somebody got up there and said that there was a Army Corps of Engineer atlas from the state of Washington on Bigfoot. And it showed that Bigfoot was put into this atlas as being part of the flora and fauna of Washington state. And I thought, you know what? There's really there's no way that's real, that's legitimate. There's no way. And so I filed a FOIA request and sure enough, got the high resolution atlas in PDF form. I mean, suitable for like gigantic poster printing. It was insane. I have it on the Black Vault if you're interested. And that was genuine. So I went after FBI files on Bigfoot of quite a few years back now and got those files and posted them online. The reason why I did that was in the atlas, it said the FBI had tested a hair sample that did not match up to any known animal in their big, massive database. Now, why is that interesting? Well, even though this was the 1970s, you would think if it was deer or bear or bunny or, whatever has hair in the state of Washington, they would have known about it to at least kind of match it up, and it didn't. And so that's what I was ultimately going after to try and get. However, the FBI, the documents that they did send, because they did send documents, didn't have anything about that test in it. Although I appealed, there was nothing there. So the atlas was created by the Army Corps of Engineers, was not fabricated. It was not, meaning it wasn't like, a silly fictionalized story. It was put in there as a real tidbit fact that even though they weren't stating that Bigfoot was definitely real, even though they put it with the other live animals that are there, they were saying that the FBI did have that hair sample. And yet the FBI just kind of said, nope, sorry, we got nothing. Two possibilities. Cover up, always a possibility, or they destroyed the records, which the FBI has absolutely done. So connected to aliens, well, if Bigfoot really, and again, I'm kind of paraphrasing your question, connected to UFOs, no, I wouldn't say that. If you're insinuating UFOs being aliens, I don't think so either. I think if Bigfoot is real or a creature like it, it probably is something that, is just pretty rare to see, and something that we haven't necessarily undeniably discovered yet. Are we going to? Well, maybe, but in fairness to that debate, we see things and find things all the time, especially in our oceans, that we have never found before in the entire history of humanity. Still, like, I'm sure this week you can find a headline that we are finding even big creatures that you can hold on your lap that are not microscopic organisms. So, that's not Bigfoot, but that is the possibility to show that science is not always right. So, Jesse's on the line. Let me pull on Jesse. Jesse, welcome to the Black Vault Radio.
Hi, John. Jesse Randolph here in Portland, Oregon. How you doing?
It's good to hear your voice. I'm good, thank you.
Well, thanks for taking the call, and thanks for doing this live stream. I think a lot of people out there have been waiting on something like this from you, and I know it's hard when you got a lot going on, but there's a big audience that you're going to reach big time, so thanks for doing it.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate it.
I don't want to take up too much time. It's a great conversation already. I want your reaction to a couple of statements that I make, because I know you don't really mince words. The first one is you seem to stand alone at this point. I don't find a lot of known researchers in the upper echelon that are really playing it straight up. I see a lot of them selling out. I see a lot of them going back to, Betty and Barney Hill cases. We see new shows every week now covering cases that are either known frauds or cases that are so rehashed that there's no need for them any longer. They don't help the topic at all. People who need to make a living from the topic, you seem to play it straight up. And if you know of anybody else, I'd love to know about that. But that's my first question, is why are you standing alone at this point?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I have been very let down, and I don't want to name names, but I've been very let down in the last year and a half to 2 years by people that I would have answered your question by naming. And I feel that they have really lost their drive for truth and for questioning what should be questioned. And although I am very hated by some, there's a lot that appreciate the hardcore questions that need to be asked. I'm surprised no caller has brought up ATIP and TTSA and although I don't call it a battle, but essentially going, head to head with the story said by Mr. Luis Elizondo. I'm surprised that nobody's attacked me yet on this live stream with all the calls that I've taken, because that is so controversial to really question, and I don't get it. So back to your point, I'm surprised that some of those names that 5 years ago I would have said, Jesse, this is a person you need to follow. They ask questions, they care about what they write, and they care about the topic. And there seems to be a shift from those people and researchers to being essentially PR agents, to people that if Mr. Elizondo sneezes, then there's a code in that, and disclosure's coming. Don't question it,
Right.
because his sneeze means something. And I'm of course being silly, but that's kind of what it is. And people are dissecting every single word. They're not looking at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is the incredible amount of discrepancies in the story, using just common sense. You don't need to believe me. In fact, don't listen to me. Just look at his own words and how he contradicts himself, and he gives differing information from one lecture to another, and then you add in the whole fact that the Pentagon went on the record and said he's not who he says he was. That to me is incredible. Correct. Right? We should ask that.
Which you broke, and when you broke it, which is kind of a follow-up, when you broke the story about that and you started releasing documentation to support it, which is what you do, which is what people really love about you, I would hope, is that they know when you say something, there's usually some documentation right underneath it.
Yeah.
From the government, by the way. Okay. Of course, my follow-up question would be, you did recently an interview with a gentleman, I don't know him very well, but he sort of represents these young gun millennials. And I don't try to say it in a negative light, but it's fair, because this group of folks, these new UFO junkies, these saucer heads, whatever you want to call them, qualified researchers or YouTube wannabes, to be incredibly gullible. They seem to have no interest in the history. For instance, they say about the Holocaust, if you don't remember, it'll repeat itself, correct?
Yeah.
So it's almost as though, does anybody remember a guy named Donald Kehoe or that? And then they put out a new book, which was a garbage series that represented what went down. So I couldn't even watch it. It was almost embarrassing. But I guess that's my follow-up question. What's going on with this new crop that seems, number one, almost as if they're the marketing team for TTSA? And number two, anyone that has any other to ask even questions about that, MUFON is right there to back them up. And MUFON has some serious pitfalls out there right now, attacking people or banning them for doing any negative or any questioning of ethics or background of TTSA individuals. What's your response?
Well, it's hard and frustrating to see because these are organizations I've worked with and people that I've worked with and have been friends with in the past. And on the last live stream that was not scheduled, if some of you were there for that are listening in now, the reality is that I've lost friends over asking those questions, and I don't get that. Now, truth be told, that means there weren't really friends to begin with, but people that, again, I've lectured with and spent time at conferences with and dinners with and so on, and now they just, if you question, whether it be an organization or a researcher, and you question this narrative, you are the devil. And they just don't want you to go there. And I don't understand why. I said this on my interview with Dark Journalist when I was on his show a couple months ago. And man, some people got angry at me. There weren't more than the number I can count on one hand. But man, did they go after me on Twitter, because I said, if some of these are not paid marketing people, then they should be. Because when you look at the amount of crap that they sling your way if you ask that question, you don't do that if you support someone. You can have a friendly conversation. Heck, even say, look, man, you're full of it, and then move on. But there has been viciousness that has come out of those names that support TTSA, and I just don't get it. And then you add in this whole new wave of rehashing stuff that has been, like, in my opinion, debunked. The Lazar thing, there's nothing that keeps me alive with wanting to believe in Lazar anymore. Some people listening will probably hate me for saying that, but it's the reality. The evidence is not there. You have to go back decades to see what was already done, not a documentary that appeared a year ago, because that did not do the whole story. And so now here we are getting these stories rehashed as being potentially real. The alien autopsy film, which has the guy who created it out there saying this is how it was done, and he said it. I mean, this was like put to rest already. And yet now we've got leaked documents that say the Santilli Roswell alien autopsy film is real. So you're seeing this reemergence of these stories. You're also seeing the downfall of people that I respected, and I just don't get it. I wish I did. I wish I understood it, but I just don't. And that's what we're seeing. And when you do ask those questions, you're shunned. And by some people, yeah, I'm shunned. I've been blocked. They won't talk to me. You tell me why. I don't know.
Well,
so I don't want to cut you
up.
I don't want to cut you off. I want to try and work in one more question, because I've actually, it's 5:00, shockingly, so I'm going to have to end this in a couple minutes. I got to get my kids from daycare. So I'm going to try and take one more call or answer one more question, but I'm going to do this again. So
John,
I hope you subscribe and call back.
John.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And I appreciate your support on social networks as well. Jesse has been very instrumental in helping me, just not lose faith totally in humanity. So thank you to Jesse as well. So that being said, it's 5:00. So I'm going to do this for a couple more minutes, but then I do have to get my kids from daycare. 5:00 was the official end point, but hey, we'll do a couple more. Oh, Coley, that's what I didn't want to forget. And I want to get to you because you were talking about Bigelow and Knapp and Putoff and all that. So, and black budget programming and ATIP. This is a huge topic when it comes to Robert Bigelow, the funds for ATIP, which we know, if the news articles are to be believed, there's a lot of erroneous facts in that. But let's just say $22 million did go to Bass or Bigelow Aerospace, and the connections. Here's my take. That is a very incestuous group, right? You can't get beyond that. And I would hope that even they would say that. Maybe incestuous is not the greatest of words, but they are often working with each other. They are often connected. They are often giving money from one hand to another. When you look at the funding, now that we've kind of unraveled a little bit of what OSAP or ATIP was and the 38 documents or reports, what they call the DIRD reports, we know by the testimony of Hal Putoff and his lecture in Las Vegas that he was the one that decided those topics. Okay, so given that is accurate and he's not making that up, and he was the one that farmed out what he called contracts, he was giving them to his buddies. Dr. Eric Davis got, I believe, at least a couple, and so on. So you got to look at where money is coming in from this side, and it's going into pockets, and then just going right into this pocket, and going right into that buddy's pocket. Now, that makes people cringe when they talk about it. But it's documented. You can't get away from that. And you don't need to take my word for it. Just look at Dr. Hal Putoff. When you add in Bigelow and what he has done and his connection to MUFON and buying information from them, and that was a huge controversy, which I won't even get into, but that obviously is a big topic of discussion. And so he seemingly, and rightfully so, he's got the money for it, has his hand in a lot of different things. I don't necessarily fault him for it, but you have to look at why. And you have to start questioning why. And you have to start looking and dissecting all of what some people do not want you to look at. There are some out there, one in particular, that they call it minutia. And in attacking me, they're like, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, but essentially it's like, who cares about the minutia? We have a UFO research program. We have videos. We have XYZ. They don't care that the minutia may show fabrication. They may show a sweetheart deal behind Harry Reid orchestrating to get that $22+ million into Robert Bigelow's pocket. Now, here's the quick synopsis of that, because again, this isn't going to be popular, but I'll put it out there because you can prove it. In the New York Magazine article that was published with an interview with Harry Reid was talking about and went on the record about talking to Robert Bigelow 1 year prior to Reid approaching Senators Inouye and Stevens to get money for what ultimately led to OSAP. Now, why is that important? Well, because what role would Bob Bigelow have in the creation of that unless it was intended to go to him? Don't take my word for it. Look up his interview. Now, a statement that I got directly, no other news agency got this because they didn't push for the answer. What I got in writing, and anyone can verify this, not just on my website, figure out how to go to the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the Public Affairs Office. Their official statement was that there was only one bidder for the OSAP contract, which led to ATIP and the $22 million going to Robert Bigelow. Who was that bidder? Robert Bigelow. Now, how is that in the cutthroat corporate world that we know of, even in 2008, why would only one corporation find value in that? And I don't get it. So the writing is on the wall that it is a sweetheart deal. So Coley, going back to your question, it's right to ask about those connections. It's right to ask how the OSAP public solicitation that anybody can download, and what that means is that bid that Bigelow put in that he ultimately won, which kind of led to ATIP with the $22 million, nothing in there, nothing is remotely close to UFOs or Skinwalker Ranch. If the money went to that, in my opinion, there's going to be a bigger problem for those that decided they should throw money onto domestic soil at a ranch in Utah to study the paranormal. That's not my opinion. That is absolutely the reality behind government spending. You cannot just buy one contract for, I'll put it simplistic, you can't bid on making an apple pie and then you turn around and you make them a Lego set and you call it a day. No, you have to make them an apple pie. And so for whomever to take that money and go to Skinwalker Ranch, if that is even true, there is a huge problem here. And that's why I think using common sense when dealing with this topic shows a lot more red flags than I've brought up. And going back to Jesse's phone call, sadly, not a whole lot of people are asking those questions. And those researchers that I thought might aren't. So, Coley, I hope that answered you. I'm sorry we got disconnected. So you know the phone, it just dropped out. I mean, I couldn't hear anything, and I knew I was running out of time, so I didn't mean to cut you off. I just couldn't hear anything. So I do hope that solved that for you. Thanks, Captain Scamp. Appreciate it. You're apparently the guy that commented on my hair last time. Thanks. That didn't make me feel self-conscious at all. So that being said, so this is the plan. Next week, I'm going to do this again. This was a lot of fun. The phone lines, obviously, there was a lot of calls. Obviously, it all worked. And so I appreciate all of you taking the time to listen in because, again, this is something that's going to be planned. There are going to be some public ones, but honestly, I do need your help to kind of take the next step forward. So I do hope that you find value in all of this research and these live streams. Next week, I will have retired police lieutenant Tim McMillan talking about his research into special access programs. I am shocked I didn't get a phone call about the Wilson documents based on how last time went on my unscheduled show. Maybe people just don't care about that anymore. I'm not really sure. But Tim has put a lot of research into that. So I'm going to bring him on a special live stream format. It will be live again. There's no set time, at least not yet. But it will be like this, but with Tim on with me. And we'll be able to take phone calls and a little bit of a learning experience. Tim knows that, but he's totally game and ready to play ball and answer your questions, including mine, and talk about those Wilson documents. I will say this. I've seen what some of the bigger researchers and the bigger names out there are saying about the Wilson documents. In order to accept these leaks and so on, you have to accept some stuff that, in my opinion, is pretty far-fetched. Lieutenant McMillan's approach is something unlike, in my opinion, anyone else out there. And what he has told me that he's kind of looking into is interesting, and it's the right way to do it, and I have a lot of respect for researchers like that. So all of that said, I do hope that you do consider helping support the channel. The links are below. You'll be able to do it in a couple different ways that we'll explain on how. If you didn't see, episode number 36 dropped today. I have an interview with Tim Doyle. He's UFO Seekers, one of the hosts of the UFO Seekers YouTube channel. We talk about Area 51 and his time outside of the base and that big cockamamie idea that they're going to storm Area 51. Well, I bring on someone who's actually been there and has researched that area quite extensively, and I think you'll like what he has to say. So I'm sorry about the chat room questions. The phone lines just kind of lit up. So I think next time maybe we'll just have to only do the chat line, or excuse me, the phone line questions, because the chat is just not something that we had time for in addition to everything else. Plus, we just need more time. So thank you all for listening. I really do appreciate it. I hope you got something out of it. Like I said, those documents that I showed have not been published before. So you're kind of getting the sneak peek. That's the intent with these types of meetups. Again, for the Patreon supporters, even at the lowest dollar level. There's going to be more additional videos also that will be appearing on the Patreon page if you're interested in that. Again, I did it a little bit reluctantly. Some of those perks are more symbolic than anything else, but I think and hope that you might consider joining. So with that being said, I do appreciate all of you tuning in. This video will not be deleted like last time because that was all totally unscheduled. But this will be available. So if you missed anything here in the next couple of minutes, it'll process and then you'll be able to view the whole thing. So that being said, I really do appreciate it. This is John Greenewald Jr. signing off from the first ever Black Vault Radio Live. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.